Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here tonight. Before we begin, I want you to get comfortable. Really comfortable. Adjust your pillow, pull your blanket up just the way you like it, and let your body sink into the softness beneath you. Take a slow, deep breath in and let it out. Tonight, we're going to travel back in time together. Not to battlefields or throne rooms, but to something much quieter, much slower. We're going to watch the ancient Romans build their roads, stone by stone, layer by layer. We'll see the patient hands of workers, the careful planning of engineers, and the remarkable transformation of dirt paths into ribbons of stone that stretched across an entire empire. There's something deeply calming about watching people work with their hands, creating something lasting, something permanent. The Romans built their roads to last not just years, but centuries. Many of them are still here, still visible, still bearing the marks of the hands that placed each stone more than 2,000 years ago. So close your eyes if you'd like, or let them rest softly on a point in the distance. Let my voice guide you back through time to a world that moved more slowly, where great things were built with patience, with time, with the steady rhythm of human hands. Shaping stone and earth, let's begin our journey. It's early morning in the Italian countryside. Sometime in the 2nd century BCE, the sun hasn't fully risen yet. But the sky is turning that soft shade of gray-blue that comes just before dawn. The air is cool and fresh, carrying the scent of dew on grass and the distant smell of wood smoke from breakfast fires in a camp beside an unfinished road. Men are beginning to stir. These are the road builders. Some are Roman citizens, fulfilling their labor obligations. Others are paid workers, and still others are soldiers from the legions. For in Rome, soldiers don't just fight, they build. They are engineers as much as warriors, and they take pride in both roles equally. One man, Marcus, rises from his simple bedgist, a wooden frame with leather straps and a thin mattress stuffed with straw. He's in his 30s, with the weathered skin of someone who works outdoors every day. His hands are calloused but capable, strong from years of lifting and placing stones. He stretches slowly, feeling the familiar ache in his lower back, the stiffness in his shoulders. This is the body of a builder, marked by honest labor. Outside his tent, Marcus can hear the quiet sounds of the camp waking. The soft murmur of conversation, the clank of metal cooking pots. Someone is coaxing a fire back to life, adding small sticks to the embers from the night before. The flames catch, slowly, reluctantly, then begin to grow. Casting dancing shadows on the canvas tents around them, Marcus walks to the communal water basin and splashes cool water on his face. The shock of it helps him wake, helps him prepare for another long day of work, but there's no rush. The work will wait. The stones will wait. Everything about building a Roman road requires patience, and patience has become second nature to these men. For breakfast, there's bread good. Solid bread baked the evening before, and some cheese and olives. Marcus eats slowly, savoring each bite. There's weak wine mixed with water to drink, the way Romans prefer it. Drinking undiluted wine is considered barbaric, a sign of poor character. Even here in a work camp far from the city, these small customs matter. They're reminders of civilization, of the Roman way of doing things. As the sun finally breaks over the horizon, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold, the men gather their tools. Today, like every day for the past several weeks, they will continue building the road. They will move earth, lay stones, pack gravel, and create something that will outlast them all before any stone is laid. Before any earth is moved, a road must be planned. And this planning is its own kind of art, one that requires knowledge, patience, and an almost mystical understanding of the land itself. The Roman surveyor, called a grammaticus, is a specialist. He has studied mathematics and geometry. He knows how to use instruments that look strange and wonderful. The gramma, a wooden cross mounted on a staff with plumb lines hanging from each arm, allowing him to establish perfectly straight lines across miles of countryside. He has another tool, too, called a corybates, which is essentially a long flat board with a groove cut along its top. When water is poured into this groove and settles perfectly level, he knows his measurement is true. Our surveyor this morning is an older man named Gaius. He's been doing this work for nearly 20 years, and his reputation is solid throughout the region. Commanders request him by name. Engineers trust his judgment without question. His roads run straight and true, and they last. Gaius walks the route slowly, sometimes stopping to kneel and examine the soil, running it through his fingers. Is it clay? Sandy? Rocky? Each type of earth requires different treatment, different foundations. He notes everything, committing it to memory and occasionally making marks on a small wax tablet he carries. He's looking at the landscape with different eyes than most people. Where others see hills, he sees obstacles to be conquered or sometimes, wisely, to be acknowledged and worked around. Where others see a valley, he sees drainage problems that must be solved. That small stream over there, barely a trickle now in summer, he knows that in winter it could become a torrent, washing away any road built carelessly across its path. The Romans have a saying, the straight line is the shortest, but not always the wisest. While Roman roads are famous for their straightness, this isn't blind adherence to geometry. It's practical. Straight roads are easier to defend, easier to march armies along, easier to maintain. But a good surveyor knows when to curve around an obstacle rather than forcing a path through it. Gaius is plotting a section now that will eventually stretch from one town to the next, about 12 miles. This section will take months to complete, possibly a full season. Roads are not built quickly. They are built to last forever, or as close to forever as human hands can achieve. He plants stakes along the route, each one carefully positioned. Later, workers will stretch cords between these stakes, creating visible guidelines for the road. But for now, Gaius works alone, or sometimes with a single assistant carrying his tools. The work requires concentration, quiet, and peace. The sun climbs higher. Gaius barely notices. He's thinking about grades and slopes, about the angle of water drainage, about the bedrock beneath the soil. In his mind, he can already see the finished road, though it exists now only in imagination and marks on wax. This is the invisible work, the planning that makes everything else possible. Without surveyors like Gaius, there would be no roads. With them, an empire can stretch from Britain to North Africa, connected by veins of stone. Now the real work begins. The route has been surveyed, the stakes are in place, and the workers know where they're going. But before any stones can be laid, the earth itself must be prepared. The first step is excavation. The road will not sit on top of the ground, no. That would be impermanent, unstable. Instead, a trench must be dug, sometimes 2 feet deep, sometimes 3 or even 4 feet, depending on the soil and the importance of the road. This trench, called a fossa, is where the foundation layers will be placed. The workers spread out along the route, each man assigned a section. They work with simple tools, picks, shovels, mattocks. The tools are iron, well made, but nothing fancy. There's something meditative about digging, a steady rhythm of lift and strike, lift and strike. The muscles warm, the mind quiets, and the work becomes almost automatic. Marcus swings his pick into the earth. The ground here is fairly soft, mostly soil with some clay mixed in. The pick bites easily, breaking up the compacted earth. Behind him, another worker scoops the loosened dirt into a basket, carries it to the side, and dumps it. Another basketful, and another, and another. The pile of excavated earth grows slowly alongside the trench. None of it is wasted. Some will be used later for banking up the sides of the road. Some will be used to fill low spots nearby. The Romans are efficient. Everything has a purpose. As the morning progresses, the sun grows warmer. The men remove their outer tunics, working now in just their undergarments. Sweat gleams on shoulders and arms. Someone starts humming a song, nothing fancy, just a simple tune, something to keep rhythm with the work. Others join in. The sound is low, companionable, almost hypnotic. They break for water every so often. A boy, probably 12 or 13 years old, walks along the line with a large clay vessel filled with water. Each man drinks deeply, gratefully, then returns to work. The boy, his name is Lucius, and he's the son of one of the engineers, refills his vessel from a nearby stream and continues his rounds. In a few years, he'll be digging too, learning the craft from the ground up. Quite literally, by midday, the trench is taking shape. It stretches behind the workers in a long, straight line, a scar cut into the earth. The walls of the trench are neat, fairly vertical. The bottom is being leveled carefully. This foundation must be perfect, or everything built upon it will be compromised. One of the supervisors walks along the trench, checking the depth with a measuring rod at regular intervals. Too shallow, and he directs the workers to dig deeper. Occasionally, if the bottom is too soft, he'll order them to dig deeper still until they reach firmer soil or even bedrock. The road must rest on something solid, something that won't shift or sink over time. The work continues. There's no rushing. There's no deadline in the modern sense. The road will be finished when it's finished, when it's done properly. The Roman approach to construction isn't about speed, it's about permanence. Better to take months and build something that lasts centuries than to hurry and create something that crumbles in a few years as afternoon arrives. The trench extends further. The men are tired now, truly tired, but there's satisfaction in the work. Behind them is visible progress, tangible evidence of their labor. That trench didn't exist this morning. Now it does. Tomorrow, it will be even longer. The trench is ready. Now comes the patient work of building up the layers that will form the road itself. A Roman road isn't just a flat surface. It's a sophisticated structure, engineered with remarkable understanding of how water, weight, and time affect materials. The first layer, laid directly on the bottom of the trench, is called the statumen. This consists of large, rough stones, whatever is available locally. They don't need to be shaped or fitted precisely. Their job is simply to provide a solid, stable foundation, to allow water to drain through. Workers bring these stones from a nearby quarry, or from a rocky area that's been identified for this purpose. Some of the stones are quite large, requiring 2 men to carry them. Others are smaller, manageable by 1 person. The stones are placed carefully in the trench, fitted together loosely, like pieces of a rough puzzle. There's a particular satisfaction in this work, finding just the right stone to fill a gap. Seeing the layer come together, slowly covering the bare earth of the trench bottom, Marcus chooses a large, flat stone and settles it into place with a solid thunk. It wobbles slightly. He picks it up again, scoops out a bit of dirt from beneath where it was resting, and places it again. This time, it's stable, solid, good. The work continues, stone by stone. The sun moves across the sky. Shadows lengthen and shorten and lengthen again. The men work steadily, without hurry. There's conversation, occasional laughter, the comfortable silence of people working together toward a shared goal. When the Statumen layer is complete, the next layer is prepared. This is the rudus, and it consists of smaller stones or broken rubble mixed with mortar or clay. This layer is crucial. It must be packed down tightly, compacted until it's almost solid. The rudus provides strength and helps with drainage. Workers pour baskets of small stones into the trench, spreading them evenly across the foundation layer. Then comes the packing. Using heavy wooden mallets or stone hammers, they pound the layer, compacting it. The sound is rhythmic, almost like distant drums. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Over and over. Different workers along the line, all pounding at their own pace, creating a complex percussion that echoes across the countryside. One worker pauses, wipes sweat from his forehead, and looks back at the section they've completed. You can't see the statumen anymore. It's buried beneath the rudus. But he knows it's there, solid and dependable, doing its invisible work of support and drainage. That's the thing about building roads. So much of the important work is hidden, buried, never seen by the travelers who will eventually use this road. But it's there, essential, permanent. Above the rudus comes another layer, the nucleus. This is even finer materials, smaller gravel, sometimes mixed with sand and mortar, creating something almost like concrete. This layer is also compacted thoroughly. By now, the road is rising up from the bottom of the trench, layered by patient layer, and finally, the surface, the summa crusta. This is what everyone will see, what carts will roll upon, what soldiers will march across. For an important road like this one, the surface is made of carefully fitted paving stones. Each stone is shaped not precisely, not like modern machining, but with skill and care. Using hammers and chisels, the paving stones are polygonal, irregular shapes that fit together like a complex jigsaw puzzle. Each stone is placed individually, settled into a thin layer of sand or mortar, and fitted against its neighbors. The joints between stones are minimal, tight. Water will run off this surface rather than seeping through. A stonemason named Titus is responsible for the final placement. He's done this work for years, and his eye is good. He can look at a gap and know instantly what shape of stone is needed. He signals to the stonecutters, sketching the shape with his hands, and they begin shaping a stone to fit. The sound of hammer on chisel rings out, sharp and clear. Chips of stone fly. Gradually, the rough stone takes on the required shape. Titus takes the finished stone, examines it, nods in approval. He sets it in place, taps it with a wooden mallet to seat it firmly, and checks that it's level with its neighbors. Perfect. One more stone in place. Only 1,000 more to go for this section. The work is slow, but it's meditative. There's a rightness to it, a sense of creating something meaningful. These stones will be here long after Titus is gone, long after everyone working here today is gone. Travelers centuries from now will walk on these very stones and never know the names of the men who placed them. But the work will remain. Days blend into weeks. The road grows longer, extending steadily across the landscape like a ribbon slowly unrolling. The work has its own rhythm now, routine that everyone knows and follows without much thought. Morning begins the same way each day. The cool air before sunrise, the revival of cooking fires, bread and cheese and olives. The slow process of waking, stretching, preparing for another day of labor. Marcus has been on this project for 3 months now. His body has adjusted to the work. His hands are even more calloused, hardened to the point where he barely feels the roughness of the stones anymore. His back still aches at the end of each day, but it's a familiar ache. It's almost comforting in its consistency. He knows the men around him now, knows their names, their stories. That young man over there, Cassius, is saving his wages to buy a small plot of land where he hopes to grow olives. The older fellow, Rufus, fought in the legions years ago and has scars on his arms from battles he'll describe in detail to anyone who asks. The quiet one who rarely speaks, Septimus, makes small wooden figures in the evening's animals, mostly with remarkable skill. They are a temporary community, these road builders, but a real one nonetheless. They share meals, share stories, share the daily challenges of the work. When someone is sick, others take on his portion of the labor without complaint. When someone receives a letter from home, everyone wants to hear the news. The work itself has become almost automatic. Marcus no longer has to think about how to lift a stone, how to position it, how to judge if it's stable. His body knows. His hands know. He can work while his mind wanders, thinking about home, about his wife and children waiting for him in the city, about the small farm he hopes to buy someday if he saves enough around midday. When the sun is highest and the heat most intense, the workers rest. This is the time for the main meal of the day. They gather in whatever shade they can find, dunder trees if any are nearby, or under canvas awnings they've erected for this purpose. The food is simple, but adequate. Today there's a thick stew made from lentils and onions and a bit of pork, seasoned with herbs that grow wild near the camp. There's more bread, always bread. Bread is the foundation of every Roman meal. As fundamental as the Statumen layer is to the road, the men eat slowly, talking in low voices. Someone tells a joke, and there's laughter. Someone else complains good-naturedly about his aching feet. The mood is relaxed, comfortable. These rest periods are important, not just for the body's recovery, but for the spirit. Men need time to be human, to connect with one another, to remember that they're more than just laborers. After the meal, some men nap in the shade. Others go to the nearby stream to wash, to cool off. Some write letters home, if they can write, or dictate letters to the camp scribe if they cannot. The afternoon stretches out, lazy and warm. Eventually, they return to work. But the afternoon pace is slower than the morning. The heat makes everything more difficult. Sweat drips constantly. Water breaks become more frequent. But the work continues, steady and patient. By evening, as the sun begins its descent and the air starts to cool, there's a visible sense of relief. Bodies are tired, genuinely tired. But when the supervisor calls an end to the day's work, there's that familiar satisfaction. Behind them, the road has grown. Maybe only by a few yards, maybe by a few dozen stones, but it's progress. Real, tangible, permanent progress. The evening meal is larger, more leisurely. There's time now to relax, to tend to sore muscles, to prepare for sleep. Some men play dice games, rolling the small bone cubes and calling out their bets with enthusiasm. Others sit and talk, their voices a low murmur in the gathering darkness. Marcus cleans his tools carefully, wiping dirt from his shovel, checking his pick for damage. Tomorrow, these tools will be needed again. They must be maintained, respected. A broken tool means lost work, and lost work means the road takes longer to complete. As night falls fully and stars begin to appear in the darkening sky, the camp quiets. Fires burn low. Conversations fade to whispers, then to silence. Men retire to their tents, to their simple beds, to the deep, dreamless sleep that comes from honest physical labor. Tomorrow will be much like today, and the day after will be much like tomorrow. This is the reality of building a Roman road, not dramatic. It's not exciting, but steady, patient, and ultimately permanent. Not every day goes smoothly. Construction, even in ancient times, faces obstacles. Some are expected, planned for. Others come as surprises, requiring ingenuity and adaptation. One morning, workers arrive at their section to find that yesterday's work has been damaged. Heavy rain fell during the night, the kind of pounding storm that seems to shake the earth itself, and water has collected in the unfinished trench, turning the excavated earth muddy and unstable. Some of the newly laid foundation stones have shifted. There's a collective sigh of frustration, but no one is surprised. This happens. Rain is both enemy and teacher to road builders. It shows where drainage is insufficient, where the grade isn't quite right, where water collects instead of flowing away. The engineer in charge, a serious man named Quintus, surveys the damage. He walks the length of the affected section, making mental notes. Then he begins giving orders, his voice calm and methodical. They'll need to improve the drainage here. Dig some lateral ditches leading away from the main trench, giving the water somewhere to go. Adjust the angle of the roadbed slightly, creating a more pronounced crown so water runs off to the sides. The workers begin the repairs. It's discouraging to undo yesterday's work, but they understand the necessity. Better to find these problems now and fix them than to finish the road only to have it fail in the first major storm. Another day, they encounter a section where the soil is unexpectedly soft, almost marshy. The trench is dug to the specified depth, but the bottom remains spongy, unstable. Building on this would be disaster. The road would sink and buckle within a year. Quintus studies the problem. Then he orders the trench dug deeper, much deeper, until they finally reach more stable ground. This means more excavation, more work, more time. But it also means the road will be secure. The deep trench will be filled with even more foundation layers, creating a structure solid enough to support traffic for centuries. Sometimes they encounter rock. Not scattered stones, but solid bedrock, blocking the planned route. Picks bounce off it uselessly. This is where the really hard work begins. Workers use iron bars and wedges, finding cracks in the rock and widening them, slowly splitting the stone into manageable pieces. It's exhausting. Progress measured not in feet, but in inches per day. On one memorable occasion, they find an ancient burial. The pick strikes something hollow, and when they carefully excavate, they uncover a small stone chamber containing cremated remains and a few grave goods, some pottery. A simple bronze bracelet, the corroded remains of an iron knife. The work stops immediately. The Romans are practical people, but they're also religious, mindful of the spirits and the proper respect owed to the dead. A priest is summoned from the nearest town. He performs the appropriate rituals, makes offerings, and arranges for the remains to be reburied nearby, away from the road, but with proper ceremony. Only then does the work resume. These interruptions are frustrating, but they're also part of the process. Building a road across miles of countryside means encountering the unexpected, adapting, solving problems that can't be anticipated. A good engineer doesn't just follow plans, he responds to reality, adjusts, improvises. And there are the accidents. A stone slips from someone's grasp and lands on another worker's foot. There's a cry of pain and work stops while the injury is assessed. Fortunately, nothing is broken, just badly bruised. The camp doctor, every construction project of any size, has at least one wraps the foot tightly and orders the injured man to rest for a few days. Another time, a rope being used to lower a large stone into place frays and snaps. The stone tumbles, missing the workers, but smashing several already placed paving stones. The rope is replaced, the damaged stones removed and replaced, and the work continues. But everyone is more careful afterward, more attentive to the condition of their equipment. Despite these challenges, the road grows. Slowly, patiently, inevitably, it extends across the landscape. Each problem solved makes the next problem easier. Each section completed teaches lessons that apply to the next section. The workers become expert at reading the land, at anticipating problems before they occur. They develop instincts about soil and stone, about drainage and stability. This knowledge isn't written in books, it's accumulated through experience. It's passed from veteran workers to newcomers through observation and practice, and through it all, the rhythm continues. Dig, lay stones, compact, pave, day after day, week after week. The work that seemed impossible at the beginning gradually becomes possible, then probable, then finally actual. The road exists, grows. It endures. Along the road, at regular intervals, the workers erect milestones. These cylindrical stone columns are more than just markers, they're records. Small monuments to the work itself. Each milestone is carved with information. The distance to the nearest significant cities. The name of the emperor under whose authority the road is being built. Sometimes the names of the officials who supervise the construction. Occasionally, even the legion or work crew that completed this section. Creating a milestone is skilled work, requiring a stone carver with experience in letter cutting. Today, a carver named Flavius is working on a new milestone that will mark the 5th mile from the previous major town. The stone itself is a cylinder of limestone, about 5 feet tall and perhaps 18 inches in diameter. It's already been roughly shaped at the quarry. Now Flavius must smooth its surface and cut the inscription. He works slowly, carefully. First, he marks the letters on the stone surface using a piece of charcoal, sketching each character to ensure proper spacing and alignment. Roman capital letters strong, clear, geometric. The inscription is in Latin, of course. It's the language of the empire. Once he's satisfied with the layout, Flavius begins cutting. He uses a flat chisel and a mallet, tapping carefully and precisely. Each letter is cut about a ½ inch deep into the stone. The work requires patience and a steady hand. A single misplaced strike could ruin hours of work. The sound of hammer on chisel creates its own rhythm, a lighter, higher sound than the heavy pounding of workers compacting road. Layers. Tap, dash, tap, dash, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap gradually. The letters take shape, emerging from the stone like they were hiding there all along. Waiting to be revealed, other workers occasionally pause in their own labor to watch Flavius work. There's something mesmerizing about watching letters appear, watching blank stone become a carrier of information. These letters will endure. Travelers 200 years from now will read these same words. Carved by Flavius on this warm afternoon, the inscription states, Imperator Caesar Marcus Aurelius, Miles Roma, by order of the Emperor, Caesar Marcus Aurelius. 5 miles to Rome, not historically accurate for this specific road, but it gives you the idea of what these inscriptions contained. When the carving is complete, Flavius steps back to examine his work. The letters are crisp and clear, properly proportioned, evenly spaced. He nods, satisfied. This milestone will do its job, orienting travelers, marking distance, reminding everyone who passes that they travel on a road built by Rome, maintained by Rome. Protected by Rome, the milestone will be erected at the road's edge, set deep into the ground so it can't be easily toppled. It joins thousands of other milestones along thousands of miles of roads, creating a network of information that ties the empire together. These roads, these stones, these markers, they're more than transportation infrastructure. They're symbols of connection, of order, of civilization extending its reach across the wild landscape. Where there is a Roman road, there is law, trade, communication, safety. The roads bind the empire together more effectively than any army could, and they're beautiful in their way. The long straight lines stretching across valleys and over hills, the precisely fitted paving stones, each one slightly different, but all working together to create a smooth surface. The milestones standing like patient sentinels, marking the way. Marcus pauses in his work to watch as the newly completed milestone is transported on a wooden sledge to its designated location. It takes 6 men to move it, pulling ropes attached to the sledge. They position it carefully at the road's edge, dig a deep hole, and gradually work the milestone into position. They pack earth and stones around its base, ensuring it's absolutely vertical, absolutely stable. When it's finally in place, there's a small moment of ceremony. The supervisor says a few words, invoking the gods who protect travelers, asking for their blessing on this road and all who use it. It's a simple ritual, but it feels important, meaningful. The milestone stands now, solid and permanent. The carving is sharp and clear. In a few years, weathering will soften the edges slightly and lichen might grow in the protected depths of the carved letters. But the words will remain readable for centuries. Long after everyone working here today has died, long after their names are forgotten, this stone will remain, marking the distance, reminding future generations that once people worked here, creating something meant to last forever. Several miles along the route, the planned road encounters a river. Not a major river, but significant nonetheless, perhaps 40 feet wide, with a steady current in water that runs deep even in summer. This presents a challenge that requires different skills, different knowledge. A bridge must be built. And Roman bridges, like Roman roads, are engineered to endure. The first step is to examine the riverbank carefully, determining the best location for the bridge. The engineers look for places where the banks are high and stable, where the river runs straight rather than curved, where bedrock is relatively close to the surface. They study the river's flow, noting how high the water rises during spring floods by examining marks on trees and rocks along the banks. After much discussion and calculation, the location is chosen. Work begins on the foundation piers that will support the bridge. This is perhaps the most challenging part. The piers must be set deep into the riverbed, resting on solid rock or firmly compacted earth. But how do you build foundations underwater? The Romans have solved this problem through careful engineering. They build cofferdams, temporary structures made of wooden posts driven into the riverbed in a circular or rectangular pattern, then sealed with clay and other materials to create a watertight enclosure. The water inside the cofferdam is bailed out, bucket by patient bucket, until workers can access the riverbed itself. It's exhausting work. As soon as they bail water out, more seeps in through gaps in the cofferdam walls. Workers take turns, one scooping water into buckets, another carrying the buckets up and emptying them back into the river. It feels like trying to empty the river itself, one bucket at a time, but gradually they succeed. The water level inside the cofferdam drops. The riverbed is exposed mud and stones and silt. Workers descend into the cofferdam and begin excavating, digging down to reach solid material. Sometimes this means digging through many feet of soft river mud before reaching bedrock or stable gravel. Once the excavation is deep enough, they begin building the pier itself. Large stones are lowered into the cofferdam and carefully fitted together, using the same techniques they use for road construction. Each stone is positioned to lock with the others, creating a stable structure. Mortars is packed between the stones. A special waterproof mortar developed through years of trial and error, mixture of lime, volcanic ash, and other ingredients that hardens even underwater. The pier slowly rises from the riverbed stone by stone. It's slow work, complicated by the water that constantly seeps in and must be bailed out. But Roman engineering is patient. They understand that taking time to do things properly now means the bridge will stand for centuries. Multiple piers are built this way, spaced carefully across the width of the river. The distance between piers is calculated based on the length and strength of the wooden beams that will span between them. Too far apart and the beams might sag or break. Too close together and they obstruct the river flow, causing dangerous eddies and undermining their own foundations. When the piers are complete and have risen above the highest expected water level, the wooden superstructure is built. Large wooden beams are maneuvered into place, their ends resting securely on the stone piers. This is delicate work, requiring coordination and care. If a beam slips while being positioned, it could injure workers or fall into the river and be swept away. But the crew is experienced, and they work together smoothly. Ropes are positioned carefully. Commands are called out clearly. Slowly, each beam is lifted, swung into position, and lowered onto its supports. When it settles into place, with a solid thunk, there's a collective release of held breath. Smaller beams are laid across the main support beams, creating a platform. Then planking is attached, forming the actual road surface of the bridge. The planks are thick and sturdy, capable of supporting loaded carts and marching soldiers. On some bridges, the Romans build stone arches instead of wooden beams, more permanent. More impressive, but also more technically challenging and time-consuming. For this bridge, wooden beams are sufficient and more practical. They can be replaced if they eventually rot, though good Roman engineering ensures they'll last for decades before replacement is needed. Railings are added along the sides of the bridge, more for guiding traffic than for safety. Romans are practical but not overly concerned with the kind of safety measures we expect today. The railings are simple but functional. Posts connected by horizontal beams, and finally, the approach roads are built, smoothly transitioning from the ground level up to the bridge deck and then back down on the other side. These ramps are carefully graded and paved with the same attention to detail as the main road. When the bridge is complete, it's tested before being opened for general use. Heavy carts loaded with stones are driven across it, while engineers watch carefully for any signs of weakness. Any unexpected movement or sound, the bridge performs perfectly. The piers are solid. The beams are secure. The structure is sound. Another milestone is erected here, noting not just the distance but also the presence of the bridge, the name of the river it crosses. And the date of completion, the river continues to flow beneath the bridge as it has for thousands of years. But now, Rome has placed its mark here, has conquered this natural obstacle, has created a permanent crossing where before there was only a ford that became impassable when the water ran high. The bridge, like the road, is a statement. Rome is here. Rome endures. Rome builds for eternity. Months have passed, perhaps 8 or 9 months, nearly a full year. The seasons have changed. When work began, it was early spring. Now autumn is approaching. With cooler air and leaves beginning to turn on the trees that line the route, the road is almost complete. The final sections of paving are being laid. Workers who have been here since the beginning can look back along the route and see, stretching into the distance, the road they've built. It looks permanent, as if it has always been here, as if it grew from the earth itself, rather than being created by human hands. Marcus stands at the end of the completed section, looking back. He was here when they first broke ground. He helped dig that initial trench, helped lay the foundation stones, helped place hundreds, maybe thousands of paving stones. His hands shaped this. His labor made this real. There's a deep satisfaction in that. In a world where most things are temporary, where most human works decay and disappear, This road will last. His children might walk on this road. His grandchildren. Generations yet unborn will use this path without knowing his name. But his work will serve them nonetheless. The final paving stone is placed with little ceremony. It's just another stone, shaped and fitted like all the others. But everyone knows it's the last one, and there's a subtle change in the atmosphere. The work that has defined their lives for months is coming to an end. The supervisor. That same serious engineer Quintus, who has overseen everything, walks the entire length of the new road section one final time. He examines the surface carefully, checking for any loose stones, any imperfections that need addressing. He tests the drainage ditches that run along both sides of the road, making sure they're clear and properly graded. He verifies that all the milestones are in place and readable. Finally, he nods. The road is complete. It meets the standards of Roman engineering, and those standards are the highest in the world. That evening, there's a celebration in the camp. It's modest, these are workers. Not wealthy men, but it's genuine. Extra wine is distributed better than the usual watered-down stuff. There's meat roasted over fires, a rare treat. There's bread and cheese and the first fruits of autumn from nearby farms. More importantly, there's the sense of accomplishment, of having been part of something significant. The conversation is animated, louder than usual. Men tell stories about challenging moments during construction, about problems solved, about times when it seemed impossible that they'd ever finish. And yet here they are, finished. Flavius, the stone carver, has created a small commemorative tablet that will be set up near the road's beginning. It lists the names of the key engineers and supervisors, the dates of construction, and dedicates the road to the emperor and to the gods who protect travelers. It's a modest monument, but it ensures that some record will remain of who built this road. Tomorrow, the camp will be dismantled. The workers will be paid their final wages and will disperse, some returning home, others moving to new projects in different parts of the empire. The community that formed here, that lived and worked together for months, will dissolve as if it had never existed. But the road will remain. Long after the camp is gone, long after the temporary shelters and fire pits and work areas have been reclaimed by grass and brush, the road will be here, permanent, solid, ready to serve its purpose for centuries.